First of all, you want to mix up your Filz-Fix solution. It's 2 ml of Filz-Fix to 200 ml of hot water. You want it hand hot, just as hot as you can take it really. It just helps the felting process, speeds it up, and just mix it up in the bottle. It's just a lot easier then to apply it to the felt. To create a poppy like this one, you're going to need some red merino wool tops and also a little bit of black. So first of all, you want to pull off some of your wool tops, and the best way to do that is just to literally grab between your fingers and the ball or heel of your hand, is to just pull, and that way you get a lovely feathered edge to it. So just pull off a few bits of that, and then just a little bit of the black. You don't need much of the black, so then just pull off a little bit of the black and then lay those to one side out of the way so they don't get wet. And then if you take your red first of all and just tease out some of the fibres, and you're just going to lay them on the bubble wrap. This bubble wrap is bubble side up, one of the pieces, and it's just a question of, let's just make that a little bit shorter, just pull a little bit off, just tease the fibres out, and you're going to lay them down on the bubble wrap in a circular pattern, making sure that the fibres overlap in the centre. So it's just teasing them out so they're not all bunched up. If necessary, you can just pull a little bit off if it's just a bit too much there. Just make sure that it's all overlapping in the centre. Pull that little bit off, we don't need that bit, it's a bit too long. Can always lay that on top, it's not a problem. And then just a little bit more. You want to make sure that you have got enough there that it's solid enough, just a little bit I think, just fill in any little gaps that you may have, just a little bit more of your fibres. You need enough to make a solid enough object, but you don't want it too heavy. If you want a thicker, heavier flower, then that's not a problem, just add more wool fibres. It's just personal preference. I tend to like my poppies nice and delicate, so it's making sure that you've teased out all the fibres. That's a little bit long, so let's just again pull off the ends there. Just a tiny little bit more down here I think, and that should just about do it. Right, okay, so they all overlap in the centre, which is the key for this. Otherwise, if they don't lock in, you're not going to have a solid piece at the end. Now for a poppy always has a black centre, so just it's a good idea just to pull off a few just very fine strands and lay those coming out of the centre. You don't have to do it all the way around, you know, filling all the bits, but just a few odd little strands coming out. Then when you put your black centre in the flower at the end, it'll all sort of blend in. Right, okay, that's enough. Right, now you need to take your Filz-Fix solution and thoroughly wet it. Don't be frightened, you really do want to make this nice and wet. The Filz-Fix solution speeds the felting process up, it helps the fibres all lock in. Hot water again helps to shock the fibres into locking in. If you find when you're working and you've been doing a few flowers and your Filz-Fix solution has cooled off, just pop it in the microwave, take the lid off and pop it in the microwave and just heat it just for a few seconds, 30 seconds, depending on how cold it's got, just to heat it up so it's hand hot again. So make sure that's nice and wet, and then you take your other piece of bubble wrap, place that bubble side down on top and just press down just to force the liquid through the fibres right to the bottom so it can reach the fibres underneath. And this is where you take your rolling pin and you're going to roll first one way, then the other way, then diagonally, and the other way. You see the Filz-Fix solution is starting to get a little bit soapy. You need to roll every direction you can, purely because the way you roll is the way the fibres will start to pull and shrink in. So that is starting, yes, that's nicely starting to lock in. Now, I've got very fibrous-y strands around the edge, which are very nice, they're lovely, but they will be vulnerable. So it's a good idea if you're wanting to do, say a poppy, then just take your finger and just pull those fibres around so that they lock into the other fibres. If you want a more solid edge, what you can do is you can literally lift those edges up and fold them in and flatten them. But I do like to have a little bit of delicate edging to my flowers, so I find the best way to do that is to just make sure that they are all interlocking. Those fibrous ends are just all locking round with the other fibres, and that'll give you a nice delicate tracery edge. So pat that down again and it's back to rolling. So another roll one way, roll the other way. Oh, I can see one little edge has come out a bit, so let's just tuck that in again. Then roll diagonally and the other way. And just for good measure, start again. So you're applying quite a bit of pressure there. But the bubbles, the friction of the bubbles is what helps to speed, again, the felting process along with the Filz-Fix solution. So get rid of that one, we don't need that one anymore. And now you should find that it is starting to all hang together. It's a bit floppy, but it's hanging together. At this point, pop it face down and with the heel of your hand, just go round and give it a good little quick rub on the bubble wrap, just to really make sure those edges are all locked in. You can be quite brutal with it, although it looks very delicate, it's quite hardy. So give it a good old rub. And once you've gone all the way around, making sure that all the edges have all locked in, then just again with the heel of your hand in the centre, just a little bit of a rub. So it's just a little bit of a rub in the centre just to make sure that those centre black fibres have all locked in. And then having done that, what you want to do is you want to pop it into some nice hot water, as hot as your hands can take it, and dunk it in and give it a real good squeeze, and dunk and squeeze. You're just rinsing out the remnants of the Filz-Fix solution. That's where I say it's a good idea to be doing this in the kitchen because you get water everywhere otherwise. And there you have your poppy. and that you can now leave to dry. It doesn't take too long to dry because it's quite thin, but leave that to dry. And what you need to do then is make your centre. So for your centres, what you need to do is get some of the black fibres. So you're pulling off some of the black merino wool tops. And again, what you're going to do is you're going to just tease them out a little bit. So tease those out. Actually, probably don't need that bit. Let's put that to one side. Depends on how big you want your centre, how big a ball you want, as to how much fibre you need. You need your Filz-Fix solution again. Okay, if it's gone cold, it's a good idea just to pop it in the microwave. And you start off by taking the fibres and take one bit and just roll it in on itself. And then get that wet with the Filz-Fix solution. And you're not putting any pressure, you're just making sure that that's sort of wet. And then take your next layer of fibre and loosely roll that around. You want it not tight so it's really gripping it tight, but tight enough that there's not going to be a whole load of air in there. If you do it too loose, you'll end up taking longer to create your ball. So then again, it's now taking the next one, and don't worry about making it all sort of perfect. There's no right or wrong really, just making sure that it's wrapping around on itself in different directions where possible and getting it nice and wet. Roll it over, and again, just make sure it's wet all the way through. You want to make sure all those fibres are nice and wet. And again, wrap that round. So I'm not putting any pressure at this moment, I'm just literally making sure that those fibres are all nice and wet, the water's all distributed along with the Filz-Fix. In actual fact, I think that is probably enough, so I'm going to put those bits over to one side. I don't want too big a centre. So that now is nice and wet. Put the Filz-Fix solution over to one side. And now all I'm going to do is, I'm not putting any pressure on at the moment, I'm literally just rolling the ball around in my hands, trying to make it more of a proper ball shape rather than just a mass of fibres. So it's no real pressure at all, I'm hardly touching it, and it's just, you can see it's starting to come together as a ball. And as you start to feel, you'll know when you are rolling it, you'll suddenly feel that, oh, it is actually a proper little ball that's forming there, not just a mess of fibres. And at that point you can start to put just a little bit of pressure, not much, just a little bit of pressure, and you can speed up a bit. And then again, just a little bit more pressure. So you can see it's starting to form a ball. Now at this point you've got to decide whether or not you want a nice round head to your flower, or if you want a flatter head. If you want a flatter head, then when you come to rolling it, you don't roll it freely in your hand, you're spinning it on the spot, and then that gives you a flatter ball. But I want a nice round ball for my poppy head, so I'm going to let it roll freely. And it's really, you do start to speed up. You see it's really starting to to bind, and it'll shrink in size. It really is starting to all lock in, and this is where you can really put the pressure on to make it really, really a nice hard solid ball. And at that point, once you're happy and you feel it's not going to reduce in size, it feels quite hard, at that point you want to again dunk it into your hot water. So hand hot water, and again another roll, dunk it in the water again, and again roll it in your hands. Make sure it's a nice solid ball. And then that you can leave to dry. That will take longer to dry, purely because it's a more solid, more dense thing, but when that is dry you can sew it into your poppy.